Now, a New York Times or Siena College poll found that President Biden is on a stronger footing than he was a year ago, but he is neck and neck in a possible rematch against Donald Trump. Despite his improved standing and a friendlier national environment, Joe Biden remains broadly unpopular among a voting public that is pessimistic about the country's future, and his approval rating is a mere 39%. The poll found Biden in a neck and neck with former President Donald Trump. Surprisingly, Trump holds a commanding lead among likely Republican primary voters, even as he faces 2 criminal indictments and more potential charges. According to this poll, Biden and Trump were tied at 43% in a hypothetical rematch in 2024. Should we expect a repeat of 2020 in 2024? Well, we'll quickly bring in our guests, but before that, here are some reactions.
He's Crooked Joe. We called him Sleepy Joe. We had a number in it. I like Crooked Joe the best because it's probably the most accurate. The radical lunatic Democrats, they impeach me, they indict me, they rig our elections. And the Republicans just don't fight the way they're good people, but they don't fight the way they're supposed to fight. The others are dirty, sick players, and the Republicans are very high class. When we win the election, a little more than a year from now, I will appoint a real special prosecutor to expose the monumental corruption of the Biden crime family once and for all. DeSantis is gone. He's just about over. I think he's lost every high roller. And they say, what's his problem? I said, he's got no personality. I could have told you that a long time ago. I didn't know practically what a subpoena was and grand juries and all of this. Now I'm like becoming an expert. I have no choice because we have to. It's a disgrace. If you say something about an election, they want to put you in jail for the rest of your life. It's a disgrace. So they can cheat on an election, but if somebody wants to question the cheating, they want to call you a conspiracy theorist and all these other things. These people are sick. They go after Trump, but they don't go after terrorists, right? They should give a little of that oomph to going after the terrorists.
Let me quickly bring in my guests. I'm joined in by Nicole Brenner-Schmitz, who's a Democrat strategist. Also joined in by Corinne Clark, who's the co-founder of freepressfield.com. Thank you so much, Corinne and Nicole, for joining in. Let's now refer to the poll. Times Siena poll suggests a slight Biden edge among voters who don't like either candidate. But here's a bit of a good news for Joe Biden. His favorability rating is only 2 points higher than Mr. Trump's. To be precise, he's at 47%, while Donald Trump is at 45%. Why so, Corey?
Well, I think those are pretty terrible numbers for both candidates. We don't really like to see that. I do think those numbers are subject to so much change as this election comes out. We are seeing investigations not only of Donald Trump, but of Joe Biden as well. And I think that may hit their popularity ratings. It seems like it will be a close matchup. And even though the candidates may be the same in 2020 as they were in 2024, as they were in 2020, this is a completely different race because we're not running in the middle of a pandemic anymore. And I think that's going to change the game a lot. So I look forward to seeing how it plays out.
All right, Nicole, you just heard what Corinne has to say. She's saying that this is not going to be an election which will be held during the pandemic, and that seems to be a factor which will have a huge role to play. Do you agree with that? Also, what will be the factors influencing the 2024 presidential race?
I mean, I absolutely agree with that. Having a presidential that's not in a pandemic is going to be enormously different for both of these candidates. The Democratic Party really didn't run a field operation in the way that it has in years prior during the pandemic. There was much less of that door-to-door and person-to-person contact happening. So it's going to be a different game, and it's going to be a different game for the candidate himself. The president will be able to be on the road and at events and at rallies, and not just as a candidate this time, but as the president of the United States. And I think the White House is taking a close a look at this poll today, and certainly realize that the job in front of them is to communicate to the American public why the legislation that they have achieved in the past couple of years and what they're doing for the economy has been a success. And they look like they're doing that now. They've had their cabinet members out already in this August recess. In the U.S., our Congress takes a 6-week recess in August to do work at home with their constituents. So we're seeing the White House realizing they need to be out there now campaigning and telling people what they've done.
That's a very valid point, Nicole, because that's why I want to ask you, Corinne, um, taking that sense of urgency into consideration, which doesn't seem to be right now a priority for the Dems, why is Biden unable to capitalize on Donald Trump's legal vulnerabilities?
I think that Biden is facing his own legal troubles. If he makes too much of a big deal out of the mishandling of classified documents, we say, hey, Joe Biden, didn't you also mishandle classified documents? Isn't your son under investigation? How involved were you in these uh, many scandals facing his administration? And it's hard for him. I think basically any other candidate could throw that in Trump's face and say, that they're not facing anything like this, but Joe Biden absolutely is. So he has to instead focus on the issues, which is another tough spot for him because the economy that he's trying to run on is not doing great. Americans do not feel like they're prospering under Joe Biden, and that is something he has to sell to them. That's a real uphill battle for him.
I'd like you to come up with a rebuttal to that. Do you have anything to say?
Well, look, I think there is a huge game of look over here, look over here. I mean, every time the Democrats are talking about a Trump indictment, the Republicans try to point to something in the Biden world. There's a lot of that going on right now. But really, the American people have really made their decision about how they feel about it. Republican primary voters don't care. They do not seem to care that this is something that is happening to the former President Trump. And Democrats firmly believe that it's a huge problem and that this makes him ineligible to be president. Now, you've got that portion that you mentioned earlier, right? This poll was 43-43, so about 14% of people who declined to select someone. And it's going to come down to what are these people thinking? Is it when we polled in them, they said they felt that Trump's legal woes were problematic, but a lot of them didn't vote in 2020. Only 62% of that 14% voted in 2020. So we've got some probable non-voters there. We have a little bit of a situation with no labels and Cornel West and a possible third party. How much does that garner? Because it doesn't take a huge percentage, that person to take off of what would be Biden voters to create a dynamic that is helpful for the former President Trump. So Democrats have to keep an eye on that situation as well. So it's really, where's this group of, quote, none of the above voters, and how are they feeling about this? But the bulk of America made their decision about how they feel about this, whether there's 10 more indictments or no more. They're solidified in their thoughts.
That's a critical factor, actually. The ones who actually are neither with Donald Trump nor with Joe Biden. Having said that, Corinne, Donald Trump's commanding a wide lead among white voters who are without a college degree, while Biden is countering that with an advantage among non-white voters and white college graduates. Trump has gained significantly also among the Black, Hispanic, male and low-income voters. This trend was very much, observed even back in 2020. What are the factors that are working in favor of Trump?
Yeah, there's definitely a changing demographic between Republican voters and Democrat voters, and we've seen that shift since 2016. And I think we can thank Donald Trump for that. And what will come to play in the 2024 election is kind of similar in the 2016 election, that we saw a huge number of new voters come out, people who had never voted before, and they voted for Trump. And that reason is because they saw him as someone who stands up to a corrupt system. Now, whether or not people care about Trump's legal troubles is a thing, because Republican primary voters are not saying we don't care about the legal woes. We are actually saying we care the most about this because we think it is a weaponization of our Department of Justice. We think the federal government is trying to choose who runs and who succeeds in this country. And that outrages a lot of voters in the Republican primary. And I think we'll see that shift in the general as well, because this sentiment that the federal government has two sets of laws, one for regular people that they enforce and one for the people that they like, and they pick and choose how they apply our legal system.
All right.
So we'll see a lot of new voters be outraged, and I it's not that people have decided they don't care about this issue, they have decided they care the most about this issue.
Nicole, I'd like your closing thoughts, especially when we talk about Joe Biden. What trends do you expect to continue, and what are the factors favoring Biden?
Yeah, I mean, look, certainly Democrats have the same theories about these indictments, which is that no one is above the law. And that's what they're going to show, that it doesn't matter if you're the former president or if you're a plumber in Ohio, you don't get to break the law without consequences. The Biden administration knows the Hispanic vote is crucial in this election. They know that that's a vote that they need to be communicating with that community, and that that's not a monolithic community, that that is a community made up of many different cultures and priorities, and that they need to be talking to those voters and talking to them now. And they also are going to be communicating with that blue collar, non college educated voter. He has the union's endorsements. He's going to be talking about all of the infrastructure bill and all the jobs that that's creating for that worker, and what that's doing to the environment of the workforce overall, and lifting up wages and lifting up safety standards. So he's going to be communicating with that voter too.